Billy, I'm really excited to be talking with you. We're talking about your work on the film Song Sung Blue, which is such a emotional roller coaster, and I want to talk with
Yeah,
you more about your
totally.
role in crafting that roller coaster. But what I've noticed, I looked through your filmography, and what I noticed is that you have worked with the director Craig Brewer a lot.
A lot.
Talk to me about your professional relationship with Craig, how that developed, and like how you guys work together.
It's actually very funny. It happened, the beginning of it happened not terribly far from here, like 6 blocks from here. George Lucas lives very close to here, and there was a birthday party. And a good friend of mine and his good friend John Singleton were at this birthday party, and came up in conversation with a bunch of people that he was about to start Hustle like
Oh,
that Monday. This was the Saturday night, and it came up in conversation. Oh no, we haven't hired an editor yet. And it just so happened the people at the table said, well, I mean, they happened to know Paul, and they said, well, you should call Billy. Well, okay. And so midnight on Saturday night, I get a phone call from Paul, and it says, you're going to get a phone call from John Singleton probably on Monday, and see where it goes. So he called me on Monday morning, and we had a nice chat. And and he sent me the script, and I got really into it. And I said, "Yeah, I'm into it. I'd love to do this." And uh, basically, they started shooting for a week, and then I set up and I started editing in LA, and flew to Memphis for 2 weeks and hung out with Craig.
mm.
And we just, connected. We have very similar sensibilities, and it's just very natural to work with Craig. We very much think the same thoughts, or feel the same things. And one of the things we do when we're working is we ask the question quite continually. We de-cringe it. Is there anything in the movie that makes you cringe? And towards the end, okay, are we clear? Do we get all the cringe out? Yeah, I think we're good. Yeah, it has been de-cringed.
That is a really great approach. I mean, an awesome story of being in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
But then having that connection. I mean, you guys have credits like obviously you mentioned Hustle. Yeah, Coming to America, Dolomite is my name. You have Footloose in
Yeah.
the background right there. So, yeah,
Yes, exactly.
very high profile titles.
And Black Snake.
And Black Snake, exactly. Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
So lots of
yeah,
work
yeah.
together, which is awesome. Um, so I had mentioned that Song Sung Blue is a emotional roller coaster. It has a lot of great highs. It has tragedy, there's sadness, and editing is a big part of navigating that. Talk to me about your approach to making sure a film feels balanced as well as decringed, and the tools you use to get there.
Well, as everything's shot out of sequence. So
Hmm.
you're playing this jigsaw puzzle and trying to anticipate, well, what will the scene after? I mean, you know what it will be, but not until you actually are looking at it do you really get the feel of. And it's a game I play. I even pre-lap or post-lap audio for anticipation of the next scene that hasn't even been shot yet, so that when that comes in, I literally cut it and just drop it in, and hopefully I hardly have to adjust anything. Um, but it's constantly that, as you said, it's that the balance of brakes and gas. And when do you slow it down? When do you speed it up? And when do you, and also when are you on camera? When are you off camera? I like to um, be off the person talking as much as possible until you start to feel you're missing things. But to me, there's nothing more powerful than hearing the words, but then watching those words reaction on someone else. But
Mm-hmm.
you can't overdo that one because then it becomes kind of manipulative. So,
Great.
but it's always that balance. And often I'm editing until the last second that I release it to my assistant to publish up to Craig.
Yeah.
And there have been many a show that I've never had a chance to look at the whole thing.
Oh my goodness, the
From
stress.
top to bottom. I've never looked at the whole thing. I am going so fast and so hard that, yeah, maybe I watch 15, 20 minutes at a time, but to really start at the beginning and run it, I don't have time.
Right. I mean, you're talking about, hour and a half, 2 hour movies. You can't stop every edit to watch the whole movie, right? So,
Well, and also understand that in an editor's cut, being that I'm not cutting anything out, a cut can be anywhere from, like, this movie, I think the finished length is 214,
mm-hmm,
including credits.
mm-hmm.
Well, the editor's cut without credits was almost 3 hours. I think it was
Oh.
250 something. And so you're cutting a lot of material.
Hmm.
And then, and there's some shows, like, for example, Straight Outta Compton was almost 4 hours.
Wow.
And it played really well at 4 hours. It
uh-huh.
was not, it didn't feel long, but we did
Sometimes
trim that down.
I like the idea of these longer cuts. I wish that more of these longer cuts would come out just so that I could see the process and the thoughts behind getting to what the final product was. Um,
It's true. It's true. Like on Lord of the Rings, you look at
yes.
the director's cut,
Mm,
and it's fantastic to see all that stuff. But boy, that's a long movie.
yeah, it is.
And sometimes individual scenes can be great, but in the whole context of a show, it's a great scene, but maybe it's better without it
Hmm. Yeah,
in the long
absolutely.
run.
Right.
Yeah.
For Song Sung Blue, tell me about the software that you used and what features you found really beneficial for helping you cut this movie.
Um, I believe in terms of the NLE that I use. I'm pretty NLE agnostic
Mm,
in that, I use Avid from time to time.
mhm,
I used Final Cut 7 for 10 years exclusively. And on this show and on about the past 5 or 6 shows, it's been Adobe Premiere.
mhm. Ah,
Each one of them have their advantages and disadvantages.
mm.
Some have their strengths in one area and frustrations in another. There are times I want to take the system and throw it out on the street. Um, but I look for efficiencies. I look for who is the most modern thinking, and taking things that are redundant, and a computer should help me more. Um, in the software, and that's what I lean into, and that's what I've kind of liked with Adobe. It's I'm very, very comfortable, but I was really comfortable in Final Cut,
Mhm, mhm,
and they're kind of cousins.
mm,
There's
mhm,
major differences, but a huge amount of similarities.
mhm,
So Final Cut, and Adobe, with their similarities and differences, one of the things I like about Premiere is its audio is very strong,
mhm, mhm,
and I work really hard in the audio area with ultra clean dialogue, and I like to do, when time permits, I like to do most of my own effects editing and sound effects editing, and, well, also picture effects editing, and music. I like to
mhm,
do my own music. Sometimes the show gets too big and it's too crazy complicated, that we bring a music editor in from day one of photography.
mhm.
And then oftentimes I don't have a music editor until way toward the end, like maybe halfway in the middle of the director's cut.
Oh, wow.
Um, the other thing which we've been using for the last couple of movies is Lucid Link.
Mm, mhm,
Lucid Link is just an incredibly powerful asset. And particularly now that we're living in more of a remote collaboration editorial workspace, to be able to, I'm sitting here in Marin
mhm.
and I'm editing away, and my assistant's down in Santa Monica, and another assistant is in South Carolina, and the director is somewhere else. And not only is the media managed through Lucid, but the project is also managed through Lucid, so that just the way you would work with an Avid, say, if I have Reel 1 and now I need to do something in Reel 2, I can look over on my screen and go, oh, Bob's got Reel 2. And I just go, hey, Bob, can you release Reel 2? And all of a sudden the lock turns off, just like if the person was across the hall, but they're across the country.
Wow.
And that has changed because changed everything. On this movie, on the editor's cut while they were shooting, I was in Santa Monica editing dailies, and obviously,
Mhm.
and my assistant Al is in New Jersey, and
Hmm.
it was seamless, absolutely, positively seamless. It
Isn't
was
it
as if they're across the hall.
isn't it awesome the capabilities that technology allows us to have now when it comes to being able to remotely be able to work on a project?
Yeah.
That's so awesome.
Well,
There's
you've
a
been able to do it on like with Evercast, where the
mhm,
director's looking at what you do, and that's fantastic. It's a great tool.
mhm.
That's not what Lucid is. It's that on an editorial level, you can be remote. And and,
Okay.
and the combination, be it using Lucid and using, say, Evercast or whatever, it's kind of what I've always wanted it to be like.
That's so awesome. There's a lot to take in there, especially for someone who enjoys editing. I'm a Creative Cloud user myself. But
Right.
what you were talking about, you mentioned audio in Premiere, which is something I was thinking a lot about while watching this movie, is because you have a lot of music happening here. So I want to know a little bit more about how you approach like musical movies and editing the audio in Premiere.
Well, let's see. In terms of, like, for example, the music, in regards to Craig Brewer movies,
Hmm.
Scott Bomar is the composer and or executive producer of all music, because when it came to this movie, um, they were grabbing recording studios in New Jersey, and having
Mm-hmm.
Hugh and Kate record all of these cues, and they're shooting and then they're flying them over, running over to some studio and recording tomorrow's cues.
Wow.
Or, I mean, apparently the way Scott describes it, it was very intense, quite crazy. But to me, it all worked. They seemingly had the music they needed for when. Now, by the time when they would shoot the scene, um, they would have Scott would do a down and dirty mix on it so
Mhm.
they could play it back, and then Craig would shoot, of course, the whole song from beginning to end. But we would oftentimes just use like 30 seconds or 40 seconds or a minute, or in some cases the whole song. But it was always, each one's a little music video, because I had to cut the entire song when only a small portion is being used.
Right.
Um, and then in terms of when you're going through the editing process, it was a combination of when they were recording the song, that was the microphone in the recording studio, there was that audio. And then when they're on stage recording songs, we were of course recording multi-mic'd, all of the audio, and we would go in and out of whatever one was perfectly in sync, and we would match them up together, or we would flip to the other one, or we almost had a department which is like sync department, who, made sure that it just was spot on and sounded great.
I wish that I could just like be over your shoulder watching all of this happening. Like it sounds so like involved, but there's so there's so much that goes to it, but you're so experienced here that you're it's you figured out how to
Yeah,
use these tools
yeah.
in your benefit. Um, the one of the when we were talking about highs and lows in the movie, there's tragedy involved here, but there's also interesting highs and fun sequences. There's a whole concert sequence towards the end. I want to know how fun you find that to like edit these concerts or these musical performances and concert performances together to give that live experience, but on screen.
Well, I've done a lot I've done a lot of movies, particularly with Craig, that
Mm,
are music based. In fact, all of the movies are very music. The spine of the movie is music and not just score music,
mhm,
but there's a theme, be it Hustle, be it Black Snake, be it Footloose,
mhm.
kind of Dolomite and Coming to America. And yeah. So and then before that, as I mentioned earlier, I did Compton. That was very similar feel,
Right.
that it had concerts and then it had performances and it had stuff in the studio. And I love doing it. Before I started doing features, I was doing concerts for HBO and music videos. And, music is a very important part of um, my life, what I listen to constantly. Music pops on at 6:30 in the morning, it's on until midnight every day. And so it's always going. And my one of my first assistants, he actually mentioned, because we edit out of my house in Santa Monica from time to time, and he goes, I just love the fact that music's playing everywhere in this house.
That's
And
so
I go,
cool.
yeah, yeah. So I like it. And I like those big concerts. I like those things that, you just start building it, and it all of a sudden becomes a live thing. And
Hmm.
that all of those in Compton, all of those concerts, um, when they went on the road and they went from town to town to town to town,
Hmm.
those two we edited the entire, or they shot the entire song.
Oh yeah. Huh.
And so we may have only shown, say, 40 seconds or
Right.
45, whatever. But so each one was a whole thing. That's why, part of the reason why the editor's cut was almost 4 hours.
Have you ever considered just like releasing the music video? Like that'd be kind of
Um,
cool.
I don't know. It's not,
I'm just gonna
I think
plant
they
that
like to
seed.
keep
I'm
the,
gonna plant that seed for the next project. Let's
I
see
think
if
it's a
that's
good
something we can
idea.
do.
I think it's a good idea. I think Craig believes in this. I think they like to maintain the magic of what the
Right.
movie is. And they don't really want, um, I mean, there is a longer cut of Compton,
Mhm.
but it doesn't
Very.
possess, the songs are not longer. I'm trying to think if there are any songs that were cut out. I don't think so.
Hmm. Very cool. It's so cool to get your perspective on these projects and how you go about them. I'm gonna seek your advice here because I am gonna go into editing my own short documentary here soon. I'm gonna film it pretty soon and I'll be the editor. And this is my first project taking on and I've done editing before. Like I said, I'm a creative cloud user. I do all my content through
Mhm,
Adobe
mhm.
Premiere. But when it comes to like a short documentary, a short film, I want to know the right way to approach it. Before we jump into editing, what do you think an editor needs to have in mind or needs to prepare or be ready for before going into the edit of a film?
Well, well, I'm not sure this is exactly what you're speaking of, but um, when I'm between projects, one of the things I do is I look at, as I have a system right here, I look at all aspects of all the tools that I use, from speakers to storage to computer, monitors, everything, every aspect of it, and look to see what's going on in the world right now and to see how can I improve this? What new devices are out there? And I'm oftentimes replacing four of the pieces, and having to deal with the facility and having to deal with the vendors such as Premiere or Apple or whoever, and trying to each time make it more efficient, more efficient. But as the deadline of the project starting is getting closer and closer and closer and closer, there's kind of a line where I go, okay, Friday, we're done. Even though there are two more things I'm looking at and I really would like to use it, but no, we're done, because now it shifts, and it's not about the system. It's not about the editing system at all. It's about zoning in to the cut.
Mm.
And I'm not sure what your budget is on your system, on your show. If will you have an assistant?
And no, I'm my assistant. It's a very small
You're
budget,
your
and really,
assistant.
I'm just kind of
Okay. All right.
jumping
Because
in.
I've done that too. In fact, on Hustle, I was my own assistant for until Craig came in the room. So
I see.
during the editor's cut. The reason I
Okay.
was saying that is because it's just being zoned in on the screen. And I don't want to deal with, if possible, I don't want to deal with, oh, this stuff is transferred upside down. I don't want to
Interesting.
deal with any of that kind of stuff. I want to stay in the zone as much as possible. I like to know what's going on, and that there may be a problem. Okay, well, keep me posted. Let's see what's happening.
Mm,
But just stay in the cut, because it's such a time consuming situation to try and, as my wife puts it, um, she calls it, when I'm in the editor's cut, and then when we segue into the director's cut, we are searching for the heartbeat.
mm,
And then you start to find it. And you start to, hey, today I think I heard the heartbeat. And as you continually working on it, working on it, working on it, it becomes a living, breathing thing. And then she puts it this way. And then when you move into the next phase where the producers or the studio get involved, your job is no longer trying to find the heartbeat, it's to protect the heartbeat. Because oftentimes their notes will, because they look at things differently, unintentionally, they're kind of sabotaging the heartbeat.
mm. That's a
So
really cool analogy. Find the heartbeat and protect the heartbeat. I think
yeah,
that's great insight and really great advice here too. That's all very useful to me. I'm going to keep this in mind as I go into this
yeah.
project. Um, I'm going to wrap it up here, but just when it comes to Song Sung Blue, what do you think people can expect before going into this movie, and what do you think they should take away, just so that they have some expectation on what to look forward to?
Well, it's kind of interesting because that word expectation,
It's a tricky word,
it,
I know.
it's a tricky word because there are certain aspects of the movie I don't want people to know.
Mhm.
And there have been two trailers. And the first trailer, there is a particular thing that happens that
Right.
Craig and I have spent a lot of time talking about it, that we did not want that shown. And and it wasn't in trailer one.
Okay.
And then in trailer two, it was hinted at, or it was kind of shown.
Yeah.
And I don't know the rationale of why Focus wanted to show it, but I believe they had a very good reason.
Mhm.
So I don't know. But in terms of the movie, it's a bigger movie than I think you think it is when you see the trailers. It's a pretty big journey, that it goes from normal to big highs to big lows,
Mhm.
and then continues to travel. So it's textured, and it's got a lot of stuff going on.
Wonderful. Well, I'm looking forward to more people seeing the film, and congratulations
Yeah.
on your work with this movie. Thank you so much for this conversation, Billy. This was a
Oh,
delight.
my pleasure. And good luck on your film.
I really appreciate that. Thank you. Hopefully I'll connect with
Yeah,
you and
yeah,
I can
yeah.
keep you informed on how it's
Yeah,
going.
absolutely. Call me. I would love to talk. I got some things. I'm playing with the beta version of Premiere right now.
Nice. Perfect. I'm gonna have to
And
jump into that too.
there's some very cool things, and there's some very cool things potentially coming out soon that you might be interested in.
Yes. More features.
All right.
Yes. I love that.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks,
Have a great
Billy.
holiday, and we'll talk soon.